Hey everyone, a couple quick notes before we hop into this episode. This was recorded back before I had some of the finer details ironed out, so you're not going to hear things like tips and bits or what we've been drinking. So, just wanted to give you a heads up before you get into it. This was a fun episode, though. I'm not going to give away too much before you actually listen to it, but I think that you're really going to enjoy it. As always, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/thisismybourbonpodcast. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can email us, thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments, use the hashtag thisismybourbonpodcast on Instagram or Twitter. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And this is My Bourbon Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast, the official show of This Is My Bourbon Shop, where we talk about all things bourbon, how they bring people together, and what makes it the spirit of Kentucky. My name is Perry. Thank you all so much for being here. And with me this week is my father-in-law, Brett Bellamy. How are you doing, Brett?
Hello. Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Perry.
Happy to have you on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk specifically about cocktail crafting this week. But we'll get into that after a little while. As you all know, we drink on the show throughout. Yeah.
A little louder for the microphone.
And we're pouring something that is a favorite of the shows and one of my personal favorites too. Have you had this yet?
Which one? The Old Forester Prohibition style?
The Old Forester Prohibition
Absolutely
style.
not, and I was very pleased to see you brought that in today.
You are going to be in for a huge treat. So if you would like to go ahead and pour yourself a glass. I've
All
already got a little bit poured, but I could use it.
I'm going to try the sound effect for you here.
Yeah. Oh,
Hope
I'll
that
take
showed
it.
up. Yeah,
I'll
hope
take
that
it.
showed up. I'm going to pour yours first.
Did. All right, thanks,
Just
sir.
say whim.
Man, that's good.
All right, well, that is a beautiful color. I like
Isn't
that
it?
a lot. Yes, sir.
115 proof. I'm not sure on the age on it. I think it's closer to the 6-year or 7-year range than 4.
Very
but,
nice. Very nice.
It's. I don't want to say too much about it before you take your first sip.
Right,
so.
Always good to see a true straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. It's getting harder and harder to find.
Yes, it really is. It is.
All
right. So, in honor of the show, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Mm.
I know radio hates silence, but you had to give us a second there. Thank you all for that.
Some of that gets edited out, but that's okay.
That is nice. You should leave that in just so they can see our eyes closed and imagine what's happening there. You know, that is delightful. A lot of notes happening there. I'll try to when you talk a long string next, I'll enjoy another sip.
One of my favorite things about this bourbon is that even though it's 115 proof, and people say this across the board, it doesn't drink like it. It's a very easy sipper. It's there's not a whole lot of heat on it, but man, oh man, I wouldn't trade this for too much.
Yeah, no, it definitely packs some. Now, tell me this: something I've noticed more as I am exposed to more bourbon drinkers internationally, thanks to some of the sites you've hooked me up with on Facebook.
Sure.
A lot of people talk about kind of some breathing on the higher ethanol bourbons in the bottle, in the glass. Other people talk about weeks later. I've experienced it just an hour or so. It almost just seems like when you first release that trapped ethanol. Did you find that in this one? Did you find that it cooled down some? Or
I did, but not so much that it became a completely different bourbon. This is a bottle from 2016.
Okay.
So the end of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's had a little bit of time to open up.
Yeah,
of
I think
course.
once you got to uncork. I really think you've got to uncork them first. That's if you notice on my bar here, we just about decant all of our bourbons. I find that it really sets them loose. When that's just that transfer a little bit of a release, and it's just all bourbon after that.
Yeah.
And you feel real fancy when you pour.
Oh, yes.
You need to feel fancy sometimes.
And I'm going to be, when this episode drops on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all that good stuff, I'm going to be putting up a short little video showcasing some of Brett's cocktail making.
Looking forward to it.
And when you'll be able to see Brett's beautiful home bar. And actually, I'd like to do a whole episode in the future just talking about building your bar. And what made this one so special, too. And, I love this room. It's not just the bar. It's
a good room. It's a solid room.
The whole man cave aspect of it. But
yeah, let me chime in on that since that is going to be a fun episode when you do it, and I hope we can contribute to that. We have several people that like to call this place home, and it basically this house was kind of unleashed to me is from my own undoing, and but truthfully we let the rest of the house look nice and fashion and decorated and all that sort of thing. But I just asked for one room. Give me just one room. And let the ladies do the rest. And this was the room, and it's not my room now. It's everybody's room. It's everybody's favorite place to go.
The community room.
But if when you do build your man cave, don't make it a man cave. Make it a people cave.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you, because this is where everybody wants to meet. And when you look around the walls, it's not my stuff. It's everybody's stuff. It is. It's little just snapshots into what we love, what our passions are as a group of friends, and all of that, and just don't put your man cave in the cave. I put mine as the main room and the main floor of the main house.
Yeah. You got trophies hanging all over the place, both literal and figurative.
True.
I mean,
lots of pictures.
The Soggy Weasel barrel, mini barrel. There's different show posters hanging around. That might be my wife that just walked in. I'm not sure. Hello. Hi. The official wife of the podcast just walked in.
Welcome to our podcast.
Official wife. Hi.
And daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound effect for you.
How are you? What is that? It looks... Okay. I believe you.
That's the beautiful place. The beautiful thing about my place here is that you never know who's going to just walk right through the door.
When the door's wide open.
Well, we leave it unlocked for a reason. We like lots of guests,
So we're going to jump right into some of the main questions that I like to ask people when they come on the show. And the first one is, what got you into bourbon? Why did you start drinking bourbon, and what made it so appealing to you as an alcohol enthusiast?
You've coined my phrase, my moniker. Yes, it sounds so much better than other things that people might call us. Let me tell you, I got started honestly drinking rather late in life, and as just a social fun thing to do on weekends. I do a lot of historical events and that sort of recreations and reenactments, and it just sort of became part of the ceremony of the weekend, is enjoying some bourbon. But I have to admit, now I was doing it in sort of a fun fashion. I was shooting bourbon, usually cheaper bourbon someone brought just to put in a saddlebag, or
as we all did at one point.
Yeah, shooting
Saddlebag or not.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I guess since I'm retired from the business, I can talk about it. What really got me into learning more about true bourbon and what makes bourbon and where it came from and its true sources was number one, a fascination with history.
Sure.
And I became a moonshiner. I'll just put it right out there. It was very craft oriented, and it was a little bit ahead of the curve before everyone was doing it, and it's popular and all that.
Before there was a show.
Yeah.
On national TV about it.
And to be honest, I was really doing it just because of my love of history and my love of hands-on, and all of that aspects just really appealed to me. And to do that, you've got to research, you've got to learn, you've got to read, you've got to dig, and I loved, the visceralness of a real book, not just surfing the web, So I have a collection of books, and in these books are collections of stories, and in these stories are collections of facts and past and history, and you start seeing, that really moonshine was just, it's just bourbon, it's just it's how it all started, the Scots Irish with their traditions of whiskey making, and overabundances of corn and inabilities to transport all of it. And you just start learning, oh, I see how this became that. And now I see the
Right.
nemesis for the aging of the barrels and all of this, how it became, made Kentucky famous. And it was awesome to see all the puzzle pieces come together as I was learning about just corn whiskey. And then, then I just really became proud of Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
Just really, really proud and possessive of it, I will say.
On the opposite end of that, I got more into the drinking of bourbon before I really appreciated the history and the heritage of bourbon.
I guess it's very similar. I mean, I like to say I started shooting it.
Yeah, exactly. But from the get-go, I know there's the microwave. From the get-go, I'd always said, bourbon is something that I don't want to get really drunk on or anything. Bourbon's something and that happens. I'm not going to, deny that has happened from time to time.
Right.
But I would much rather sit around and enjoy a couple glasses of something that might be a little bit harder to find or a little bit more higher proof. That was a nice little sound effect right
perfect.
there of that hitting the bar top.
We're going to sample that and use that a lot. In future shows, if you're really good at this and you're a continuity freak, you'll find that same sound effect. Ah, there it is. All right.
Used throughout. That'll go in the theme song.
Yeah,
I'm sure
we're going to work that in.
Yeah.
Awkward silence as we both drank at the same time.
Drink silence, but that's okay. As we like to say, we're uncut and unfiltered here on This Is My Bourbon Podcast.
And the longer this podcast gets, the more fun it's going to be. So hang with us and hope you're drinking with us.
There's a really great show with two guys. I love them both. Their names are Will and the Grease. They're out of Nashville, and they have a whole whiskey podcast called
splendid.
The Podcast.
Ah, very good.
I wish that's one of those things I wish I had known about beforehand. And we're working on trying to get Will and the Grease on this show.
Oh, they must be
in the future. And though I don't want to spoil too much about that, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun having them on, especially if the Grease gets a little greasy, as he likes to say. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about today is the wonderful craft of bourbon cocktails.
Yes.
So we'll get into what I consider to be the house cocktail, almost literally, here at, I don't want to give away too much of your personal information so you don't have people showing up looting your bourbon or anything.
Right. The Rusty Pistol Saloon.
The Rusty Pistol Saloon is exactly right. So as much as we love drinking straight Kentucky bourbon.
Yes. Oh, yes.
There is something really exciting about the science and experimentation and craft that goes into the cocktail.
Yes, sir.
And you are a mixologist.
Yes, not professionally.
Yeah.
I'm an alcohol enthusiast. That's all I claim to be. But I do tend to lean toward some mixture of alcohols.
I'm starting to think that maybe the title of this episode is going to be "This Is My Alcohol Enthusiast."
Yes, absolutely. Splendid.
So, talk a little bit about your journey through becoming a part-time mixologist on the weekend, and why you really enjoy doing that, and I'll let you go from there.
Well, thank you. I tell you, I have to give my love of history again big credit to that. As I studied, like say the moonshining, I must admit the reason I built my first still was to make absinthe, the Green Fairy, the famous elixir from France, and there's a rich history there and a very tumultuous one there, and learning that I just really became fascinated with absinthe in its purest form, the way it's drank, just like bourbon here, as we're sharing, but also as a historian, I began to learn more about the cocktail, and A lot of people won't realize, as you may go to the liquor store today and stop by the checkout counter and buy a bartender's guide that helps you mix a myriad of cocktails and shots and drinks and the sort of. The very first really universally published, produced, and enthusiastically purchased bartender's guide was written by Jerry Thomas in the heart of America's most tragic time, 1862, the heart of the Civil War.
Really?
Was the very first cocktail guide.
What a good time for that.
Isn't that something?
Popular though.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And because if you read this, you would think it's in a high life time of America where everything's all great and all this, but it's absolutely one of the most tragic times in American history. But what you have to realize is the U.S. government has lots of money, and they tended to occupy many, many towns, big cities, all over the country. And as they occupied these towns, they had lots of officers on a payroll with nothing to do with their money, but, and their boredom, but drink. So if you're the Galt House or some other
Louisville Zone.
Louisville Zone there, were similar, or the Brown. I think the Brown may have been around in those days. I think there was a famous murder there. So during the Civil War of a general body, we'll get into that's another whole show.
That's for This Is My Civil War podcast.
Yeah, this is my Civil War podcast. Well, obviously, if you have all this government money out there, and how are you going to get it? You're going to have better drinks, and guess what, people? Flair bartending was invented in the Civil War. Just look up the Blue Blazer. It's basically the guy lit some high-proof alcohol on fire and poured it from one cup to another and tried not to burn the hotel down in the process. But the bigger show you put on, the better drinks you made, got the more customers.
I just searched Blue Blazer on Google without actually qualifying cocktail,
Probably
and just a
not
bunch
a great
of blue,
idea.
just a
Brooks
bunch
Brothers looks nice. Yeah, I like that. That looks sporting.
Just a bunch of blazers came up.
Just a bunch of blue blazers. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
I'll check that out later.
As I read through this guide, I referred to the absinthe because I found absinthe being used totally differently than I had envisioned. Well before it was highly sought after in the Belle Epoque era, which is closer to the turn of the century, but used in many cocktails. And then the more I saw, not always bourbon, but whiskey, because as you know, bourbon was just in its infancy of being universally understood, but still was gaining much popularity as a drink. Bourbon, as you know, General Grant won a war drinking Old Crow.
On a quick side note about the absinthe, but before we get too deep into anything and I forget, if you want real absinthe, I mean in the absolute realest sense, get in contact with us. We'll hook you up with a once-in-a-lifetime experience of absinthe. I'll just say, the only place that I will go to drink absinthe is right here in the Rusty Pistol Saloon.
Yep.
Because it not only does it feel more authentic because it's made to be more authentic, but it's also just so good.
Yes,
it's so good.
And you'll be glad to know the Green Fairy is happily resides here, so she won't follow you home. So you can enjoy your dance with the Green Fairy in complete safety.
Anyway, sorry to
that
interrupt
would be
you.
a pleasure. I would love to do it. It's still a great passion of mine. It truly is. So as I saw more and more how these drinks were being made, and as you know, the Old Fashioned was probably the original, I guess, it's heralded as the original cocktail, the original bourbon cocktail, and it was very simple. I saw a lot of uses of just sugar syrups and just some very basic things. And
I just had this horrible thought about somebody mixing absinthe and Coke.
Yeah, I don't even know where that came from. But now that you've said that, maybe you'll probably bring it up some night when we've had 3 glasses of absinthe and everything suddenly seems like a great idea. Which the 3rd glass of absinthe is sort of the breaking point. I'm just going to warn you all.
Have you ever been hiking at the landfill? That sounds like a great idea. Let's get suited up.
Yeah. So he digresses, but
I very much that.
right as I was really getting into kind of learning all of this and seeing, kind of craft cocktails because there was no other way. There was every cocktail was a craft cocktail because you were it. There was no liquor store to go buy things or go to the grocery store section for the pre-made sweet and sour.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't go to Walmart and get a sweet and sour
Rose's
mix.
grenadine and that sort. Yeah, everybody was a craft cocktail mixologist because that's all they could do. About that time, I was lucky enough to live in a town, which I still do, Lexington, Kentucky, that had sort of a rebirth downtown. And with that, some really, really good cocktail bars with some really serious, enthusiastic, just skilled out of this earth bartenders. Very, very proud to know. And I just became fascinated by what they were doing. To watch a fellow who, of course, just blew you away making a cocktail, a bourbon cocktail, and the way he poured every aspect of it, and with the addition of any bitters or garnishes, just did it like he was creating art. You see, the next guy orders a beer, and he pours the beer with that same amount of enthusiasm and art. Like every drop of that beer, he is creating somewhere between the can and the glass. And that type of devotion was just infectious to me. And it obviously, kind of fueled my desire to learn more. And I'm one of those guys that hates just being on the sidelines. And if I can find some way to get my own little niche in the game, I will. And I host some pretty good events with my his historical reenacting outfits and things, and it became a vehicle for me also there. Go ahead.
As a for those of you that might have found this show through the store online, this is my bourbon shop. You might have figured out that I am also a graphic designer in my spare time when I'm not drinking bourbon. That was a joke that probably didn't land, but that's okay. And I understand the appreciation for the art aspect of it. Mm-hmm. As something of I'd have the conversation all the time about whether or not graphic design is an art form. But the point is that I still understand and appreciate that form of art that comes with cocktail crafting and being a mixologist. As highbrow as that sounds, but people look at artists the same way and go, well, do you think a little bit higher of yourself than we probably think about you? But so is society. So is life.
Well, to kind of go along with that, right about the time I was really getting into learning about bitters and the use of different things to bring bourbon alive, which again I loved at this point just to sip on. As you know, it's very rare that you'll see ice in our glass. Certain bourbons, some people claim come alive that way, and I'm always willing to try it.
And one of the things that we always say too is it doesn't matter how you drink it, as long as you are enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have found plenty of people that like bourbon on the rocks, the same bourbon on the rocks that I drink neat.
Yeah.
And all the power to them.
Yeah.
I mean, let them enjoy that. If they enjoy, and I'm using an extreme example here, but if they enjoy Pappy 23 year in a cocktail, or Pappy 23 on the rocks, however overrated Pappy might be,
right,
or overhyped,
at least overpriced.
Definitely overpriced, but that's a whole nother episode to go into. But anyway, they're enjoying it, and they're celebrating the heritage of Kentucky and the heritage of bourbon as well.
Yeah, I was actually going down one direction, but I wanted to add something right there. It's a great Booker Nose story, and Perry has heard this same one because
I forgot about this story.
We as enthusiastic bourbon purists might roll our eyes at a bourbon and Coke, but someone once asked.
Oh, I love this story.
Booker No, at this time he was the living godfather of bourbon when he was asked this question, and someone said, Booker, you got to tell me, if I took the very best bourbon that's ever been made in the world and put it in Coke, what have I done? And Booker just looked right at her and said, you just made the very best bourbon and Coke in the world. There it is, people. That's it. If that's the way you enjoy it, by gosh, and you've got the best bourbon in the world, and that's the way you want to enjoy it, by God, you have the very best bourbon and Coke in the world.
And I mean, again, I'm no stranger to bourbon and Coke, so I'll indulge from time to time.
Absolutely.
But
Me too.
it's just, you're drinking bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
You're enjoying it. And I would rather see somebody enjoying and drinking bourbon in their own way than somebody turning their nose up at it.
Right.
But, this is my bourbon podcast, so
right,
you
right.
probably knew that already.
We're kind of taking the easy way out being bourbon enthusiasts because there's no such thing as bad bourbon. If you obey all the rules and are truly a bourbon, you're going to be good. It's really hard to really completely mess it up. It's just how great is it?
Yeah.
That's the way I put it. It's all good, but how great is it compared? All you got to do is branch off into any other whiskey, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I know there's lots of rye lovers out there. There's lots of Scotch lovers, and there's Irish whiskey lovers, and then again, there's beauty to that, every bit of it. And I've always enjoyed drinking any of those with an enthusiast of that variety. And this is just ours, and we're just proud of it.
Yep, absolutely.
So let me.
We got to back up a little bit.
We got to back up a little bit. I'm trying to even figure out where I was, actually. But, we were talking about crafting some things with, or getting more creative with bourbon. And I like I said, I saw more and more being done with it. And he was talking about that artistic aspect. If you remember, Perry was talking about mixologist being like an artist. And art, or your personal art, as you know, it can be a lot of things. If you're a chef, if you're a pastry cook, whatever it is, that's the beautiful.
Food is a form of art.
Oh my gosh!
In every sense. Oh man.
So right about the time I was really getting into crafting some things with bourbon, I met a really really neat girl named Sarah in Indiana, and she had a cool little restaurant, kind of like the middle of nowhere, and she loved to bake pies. The rest of it, fry cooking, French fries, slap the stuff on the grill, whatever.
Sure.
But pies. And she knew how I was with my moonshine and my bourbon creations and my cocktails. And we both connected on that kind of level because no matter how busy she was slinging a burger, she knew somebody had just ordered a slice of a pie that she just really wanted to be really good. And she would be watching over her shoulder. And that was her famous, favorite time is that first bite of pie.
Nothing like a good slice of cherry pie.
Oh, I'm telling you.
And
she loved to see
a fine cup of coffee.
She wanted to see the eyes closed. She wanted to see that look on their face. And it's the same exact thing that I always did when I was giving someone the first drink of something that I'd made. And we really connected on that. And that's that kind of artist thing. I don't care what your art is, man. And by God, I'm happy bourbon's my art.
Yeah, we're in the same boat, and we don't need a bigger one because there's plenty of us in it.
It's getting bigger all the time. We have to get a bigger boat. We need a bigger boat, Perry. Yeah.
So, before we get into what is going to be basically our review of the episode, so for those who have listened to This Is My Bourbon podcast prior to this episode, you know that towards the end, we like to review a bourbon, or we like to have a flight fight, or whatever. So today, being our first cocktail episode, we're going to throw a little curveball at you, which is okay, because, this is all about cocktails here today. What we're going to be enjoying and experiencing, I hope, unless Brett has decided to change the game up.
I think we can make this happen.
All right, good deal. Is what I fully believe to be the best cocktail I've ever had. And,
thank you, sir.
And no thanks needed. I mean, all thanks to you for you and a good friend of the show, Greg.
Yes.
and not just the show, good friend of the family.
Yep, and this fine libation we're sampling.
Yes. The cocktail that was, according to cocktail lore,
Yes.
created late one day on Derby Day.
Oh, just after 2 weeks after Derby.
Oh, was it 2 days?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's
Okay,
a
2
reason we
weeks,
were
excuse me.
tired of the mint julep by that point.
But if you're ever looking for the perfect marriage between a mint julep and an old fashioned, the Lincoln Avenue
Don't forget the Manhattan.
and the Manhattan too. That's right. There's vermouth in there.
Yep.
The Lincoln Avenue, which is named after the street that it was created on in Lexington, Kentucky. You're really missing out. I mean, if you haven't found it yet, and we highly encourage you to get in contact with the show so that we can hook you up with something at some point.
Yeah.
And
We'll just
try to make
give you
sure.
my number when you go to a bar. Just say, hey, you don't know me, but this bartender needs to know how to make a Lincoln. I'll try to text it to you. I'll send him a link. Yeah. Go ahead, Perry.
Well, I was just going to say, we've already talked a little bit about the inspiration for the Lincoln Avenue. And I also said earlier on that when this episode drops, we're going to be posting a video from this recording. And we're not just going to be showing the home bar, the Rusty Pistol. We're also going to be showing a little bit of the creation of the Lincoln Avenue, excuse me. And I think you're really going to enjoy seeing the process that goes into it, especially if you've listened this far into the episode.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Yeah, really. So before we get into it, talk a little bit about the ingredients that are going to go into it and what makes it the perfect marriage between those three cocktails we mentioned, the mint julep, the old fashioned, and the Manhattan.
Thought you'd never ask. All right. So now, people, all right, those three cocktails that my son-in-law just mentioned.
Eye of the Tiger is starting up in the background.
Oh yeah, we're in a sweatsuit right now. We're jogging in place. All right, we're getting ready to. It's getting real now. We'll find a big flight of steps later at the end, but we probably we will not make it.
Adrian,
we're really halfway through our samplings here. Now, what I want to say is a good friend Greg that he mentioned was working at a really, really good cocktail bar in Lexington. I became friends with Greg and really hit it off. He's quite a unique individual, and I really hope that he gets to hear this. And I'll send him a little something. He's living in Fort Myers, Florida, spreading the beautiful cocktail word and the love of bourbon as far south as he can. And he really inspired me. He worked with me. We created a small little company called Creative Cocktails Lexington. Our idea was to bring
LLC.
There you go. To bring quality drinks, quality cocktails to the catering market. You have these kids that can barely throw a gin and tonic or bourbon and Coke together. We wanted to be able to bring you your own signature cocktail for your event that's never existed before, named for you. People could order it there. You'd have the recipe to keep for the rest of your life, as something fun to make at parties and things. And the idea is still alive and knocking around. We've got several people that are enthusiastic about it. But as we started doing more and more events and getting really kind of into our craft, we started making our own bitters. We started finding ways to make some really good mixers and that sort of thing. He was really in tune with kind of the hip happening kind of crowd that was building around bourbon at the time, and that was great. And we had gone to Derby, and as we were wont to do, we made some really good mint juleps. Really good mint juleps. I have a wonderful neighbor next door named Sarah, who is a gardener for our whole neighborhood, and she's been making some really good mint for me. She's hybrided some really neat mints like Kentucky Colonel, Southern Colonel, Spearmint, and they've grown together now over about 7 years. And I have a mint patch that I'm so proud of, just on the other side of my gate in my neighbor's yard. And
You own part of that. I'm
yeah,
assuming.
that's right. I'm telling you. No, we all my neighbors have gates between our yards, so we can all just come and go to the back doors as we please. We're all bourbon enthusiasts. That's the beautiful part. But Greg and I had made some really good mint juleps, and for some reason that afternoon I wasn't really feeling a mint julep. We had many. This was a couple weeks after Derby. He made an old fashioned, and I think I'd made a Manhattan, and all three of those are acquired taste cocktails. All right, they are bourbon lover purist cocktails, but I want anyone out here on this listening audience to tell me the last time they went out on a Saturday night and bellied up to the bar at their favorite establishment and ordered a mint julep. All right, just please tell me when that happened last. Probably not.
If it's outside of Kentucky,
Yeah,
I would be
probably not.
really, really surprised.
Right. And again, the old fashioned is maybe a little more popular just because it's so storied. The Manhattan, a little less, but again, a really, really great way to enjoy bourbon in the martini style. I love a Manhattan, but again, an acquired taste. It's a purist bourbon cocktail. And by an accident that afternoon, I discovered that by combining the basic ingredients of the three of those, we can bring out the best of each individual cocktail and just highlight them and showcase them. And so what we did, we just by just getting in there and
Right.
rolling our sleeves up, we stripped them down to their bare essentials and found better ways to make them. Like, let's get organic, wonderful Demerara sugar, and a carbon-free production Demerara sugar, and make our own rich syrup. Let's kind of make our own orange liqueur. Let's get the best sweet vermouth, and just kind of build it up from scratch. And it's not super craft, but we did make some of our own bitters. And
I would consider it craft.
I
mean,
think so.
if
I
you're
appreciate that.
if you're doing stuff like, making your own bitters,
Right.
and aging your own bitters, especially,
Yep.
or brewing is not the right word, but brewing your own simple syrup or Demerara syrup,
Right,
or
right.
whatever, that is all part of the craft that goes into
Yep.
the art of the cocktail.
Yep. That's really the dim is one of the few things you can't really shortcut on, because it is a rich syrup, where a simple, which you can buy adulterated versions at your liquor store,
But nothing compares to
right.
making it at home.
because a Demerara sugar is literally 1-to-1, a cup of sugar to a cup of water, and it's a rich, dark, beautiful sugar. Whereas simple is like a 2-to-1, 2 waters to 1,
Right.
basically white granulated sugar. By going with the Demerara, you just get such a wonderful richness to the sweetness without just being sweet for no reason.
Right.
But the beautiful thing about the Lincoln that I'm going to tell y'all is you can build the rest of it off the shelf. All right, you can pick your favorite bourbon. You can find a really nice orange liqueur or a Cointreau, or a Patron makes a really nice Citron, their own version of a Cointreau, and you can find this good sweet vermouth right on the shelf. It's not expensive,
Sure.
and they're delicious. And
Make sure it's sweet and not dry.
right.
It's very important.
Yeah, very
to
important.
this.
and just build it up yourself, and just, my gosh, find some mint and delicious navel orange, and you will blow the socks off any visitor, guest that you're having at your house for a dinner party.
So I think that I'm certainly excited about it, and I think that some of our listeners are getting a little bit more excited about seeing or listening to, rather, the whole process that goes into creating the Lincoln Avenue. And before we do that, I want to ask.
Yes, sir.
And I already know the answer, but I want to make sure that you know too. What bourbon are we using for the Lincoln Avenue tonight?
Well, it's a very splendid bourbon that, unfortunately for all you non-Kentuckians, good luck finding it.
Can't find.
No, but
Sorry.
I'm clanking the bottle about the bar right now in front of the microphone. We have a splendid, splendid distillery in Kentucky called Heaven Hill. And they make many, many. I tell you what, we're drinking out of a Heaven Hill glass right now. So let me read you Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, Bernheim Original Wheat Whiskey.
Wheat whiskey.
Yeah, wheat. Parker's Heritage Collection, Rittenhouse Rye, Larceny Bourbon. All right, these are some serious bourbon makers here. All right, but their go-to, their classic, their namesake is Heaven Hill.
Yes, it is.
And unfortunately for the rest of y'all, here in Kentucky, we can get Heaven Hill bottled in bond, straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. It didn't travel somewhere to be bottled. It wasn't adulterated by some Californian or anything else. It is right here in Kentucky. But the beautiful thing, it's 6 years old in the bottle at an affordable price, and it is absolutely delightful. And especially those of you who enjoy a more wheaty, slightly sweet bourbon, it is right up your alley.
And anybody who has listened to the show before knows that on our very first episode, we did Flight Fight with our we did a bottled and bond budget bourbon battle.
I love budget bourbon. Like I said, it's all good.
So
how
what we
great
did,
is it?
Brett, I don't think you know this or not.
Oh, tell me, talk to me.
We did Heaven Hill bottled and bond.
Okay.
We did Very Old Barton bottled and bond,
Oh,
which is not the decant.
I wish y'all could see this. On my bar, I have a bourbon tap. All right, it's made by an outfit out of Pennsylvania called Funky Rock. It's
This is an explicit show too.
Yes.
So not that anybody under 18 is going to be listening to the show, but that's okay.
Rock, come on. But look it up on the interwebs. It's fascinating. He does really, really great work, and he makes these beautiful decanters out of marble and granite. It has a beer tap on it with a beautiful stone as the handle, and you can set your favorite bourbon down in there and dispense it with great reckless abandon, as we are wont to do.
You can walk right past.
Yes.
And lose your mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with the Flight Fight, I'll back up a little bit.
Love some VOB.
Yeah, we did the Heaven Hill 6-year bottle and bond. We did the Very Old Barton bottle and bond, and we also did the Evan Williams bottle and bond.
Oh, splendid.
And I don't want to spoil too much, so skip ahead about 15 seconds. But in my Flight Fight, Heaven Hill won. And I stand by a 6-year bottle of bourbon that you can buy for $13 in the heart of bourbon country.
I'm telling you right now. What y'all don't understand, a lot of the high-dollar bourbons you're buying now were available like this on mid-shelf bottles.
With an age statement, too.
Yeah, with an age statement. Old Charter out of Buffalo Trace was a wonderful bourbon with an age statement. I think it was an 8-year age statement. Mm-hmm. It came out of, if you've ever been, if you've not been on the bourbon trail, you got to do it. I think Buffalo Trace is actually off the bourbon trail right now, but just go there.
No, it's on.
Excellent, splendid.
It's on.
Splendid.
I was there recently and saw that they were on.
They have a stone rickhouse there, very unique stone rickhouse, and all the Old Charter is aged in the stone rickhouse. Well, on a mid to bottom shelf, you could buy 8-year-old Old Charter. Well, now that age statement is gone. A lot of y'all are familiar with the Eagles Rare. Well, that's really just a single barrel ancient age.
Still labeled as a 10-year bourbon, though.
What's that?
Eagle Rare.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah, you have to search for it.
Right.
I mean, you really have to. I mean, as far as working for it, you have to just pick the bottle up and turn it 180 degrees, and you can see that it says 10 years on it. Yeah, but it's a 10-year bottle of bourbon for $30.
Yeah, but just a few short years ago, you could get that same bourbon as ancient age on the middle shelf for $16. The same bourbon. But again, it's a single barrel version of the ancient age, so that's what separates it. But who's going to buy a single barrel ancient age? Let's just give it a fancy name, a pretty bottle, and boom, there you go. It's a long shot. But that's okay, and that's why we're so proud to still have an age-stated bourbon at a what'd you call it, bargain price?
What do we say? Bottle and bond, bargain bourbon battle.
There you go.
So yeah, a bargain bourbon.
Yes.
So anyway, the bourbon that's going to be going into, we went a little bit off track there, but the bourbon that's going into Lincoln Avenue this evening is going to be Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. So if you want to drink along with the show,
as we should. You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
And you're. Oh, are we
Yeah,
going to
we're
drink
gonna
a
do
little
this
bit
right
before
now.
we actually?
Okay.
Before we
I'm
actually
taking
get into
over the show
cocktail?
for a minute. I'm now. I'm a little bit of a show pirate. I'm taking over. You remember the fancy corking sound that we made? This is what we're gonna make now. You ready? I need silence on the set. Quiet. Crack. Crack plastic. All right.
Which
I don't know if any of y'all
didn't
know
work that
the
well, but
French
that's all right.
name for a screw off cap, but that's what we just did. I'm sure it's really fancy sounding. All right. So we are now, before we start, making a cocktail, we need to, get down to basics.
And everybody knows how much I love this and the palate and the nose on this, but I never gonna turn this bourbon down.
And another gift to your sound effect cataloger. I'm gonna pour this one at the mic. The all important glass clicking sound.
Oh, and the pour.
Oh, I hope that showed up.
I hope you realize I am the sound effects guy.
It's a big crew that makes up this podcast, you people.
We got our home base guys, Tanner and Curtis, and then you got me, who's doing all the legwork.
That's right.
Sorry, Tanner and Curtis. I love you guys, but you know how it's going.
All right,
so
sound
anyway,
effect cataloger. Here we go. Cheers.
I didn't like. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Hold it by the bottom. Let's get a good glass ring. All right, you ready? Right at my mic. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Oh, that's going right into the theme
the
song.
bank, the catalog. Yeah. Daggone it. All right, now
That's
people.
smoother. That's smoother than the 115.
You got to understand what we're doing
style.
here. What we're doing here, people, we're drinking a bottom shelf, $12 to $14 bottle of bourbon.
And that's not an over exaggeration by any
No.
means. It is literally a bottom shelf bourbon for $12. It's 6 years old.
And
it's
it's
100 proof.
100 proof, people.
That's
Frank,
more than Van Winkle Lot B 12 year.
It is so smooth. There's absolutely no ethanol kick. We cracked the seal on that, and it is no breathing needed. Absolutely
so
splendid.
smooth.
Oh my goodness.
It's like and again, as we've said before, I'm stealing this from Chad of It's Bourbon Night. It's a caramel bomb.
It is. Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Anyway, so we're gonna finish off our glasses of the Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond 6th year, and we are going to move into preparation for crafting the Lincoln Avenue.
Video to come.
Video to come, exactly.
Yep.
So we will be back with you in just a few seconds for you, but probably about 15 minutes for us. Sorry, Will and agrees. We're not trying to steal the 15 or anything.
All right, but this is a good chance for a commercial. Our sponsors will be with you shortly.
Anyway, we'll be back with you here shortly. So we are back here on This Is My Bourbon podcast. This episode, as you know, we're talking mainly about bourbon cocktails. And we are just about to prepare the Lincoln Avenue, which, as I've said before, I consider to be the best cocktail I've ever had in any capacity. So, Brett, I would like for you, even though you've had a little bit of it so far, to introduce the Lincoln Avenue before you get into the actual crafting process for this drink.
All right. We talked about how the Lincoln Avenue really wanted to, or accidentally, showcase the best parts of 3 acquired taste bourbon cocktails: the mint julep, the old fashioned, and the Manhattan. And I think what really made that obvious to me, why it was actually as good as it is we entered this cocktail in the original, first ever Bourbon Social in Lexington, Kentucky, 2014. We had really enthusiastic, amazing, still friends to this day, craft cocktail enthusiasts from some of the best bars here in Lexington, outside of Kentucky, and as far as California. and they had come here to show what they have against other enthusiastic cocktail crafters just like themselves. And we were blessed to have King Cocktail himself, Dale DeGroff, as a judge. Oh, I enthusiastically hauled things around and worked as a volunteer for no fee at all, just to sit in on a 2-hour lecture on just the bitters, on just the Manhattan alone, and it was amazing. Dale DeGroff is who will be the first to tell you he didn't actually invent it, but he gave up and just started taking credit for the Cosmo.
Nice.
He's written several books, and I highly recommend every one that he's ever written. And this is reigning King Cocktail. He is the man, and to have
he's got a crown and a belt.
Oh,
and
it's
everything.
the whole thing. It's the whole.
He
thing.
doesn't leave home without it.
Entourage. But to have Dale DeGroff come up to you after an event at which you just won, hands down, by such a margin, they re-added the scores 4 times, and look at you in the eye and say, Brett, that was good. That was really good.
Oh.
That's one of the greatest moments of my life. But I will tell you why.
You know, your daughter isn't here or anything.
Yeah. I will tell you specifically why. Is the more you get into cocktails as just an overall behind-the-bar enthusiast, not just bourbon, you will find that even the best are some of the most elementary cocktail books, like A Man's Place is Behind the Bar. You start to see how...
What a title.
Yeah, it's a great title. I recommend it to everyone. It's a perfect book. I can get the bibliography to the host of the show, and you can check in and get it. I recommend it as a gift-giving item also. I keep about 2 or 3 always on hand to give to other budding alcohol enthusiasts.
Very nice.
But what you see when you can actually look all at once at our best cocktails, the idea is you start with a beautiful foundation, and you try this and you try that, and this is built on that, and some of the best are like maybe just 2 elements of this added to that, and what you start to find out is, well, it's all tied together. It's all wonderfully related. There's no real inventing the wheel on a classic, beautiful cocktail. And so I think that's what we accidentally did with the Lincoln. We didn't try to reinvent the wheel. We literally took the best of the best from different cocktails and put them together.
Excuse us for the second official dog of the podcast, good old Gus, barking at passerbys in the background. But anyway, so we're going to jump right into this.
All right.
If you don't mind. So run through very quickly what the ingredients of the Lincoln Avenue are.
All right.
And then we're gonna do a fantastic little sampling of it. I'm just so thrilled. I haven't had this in a long time.
Always a lot of fun. Yes, sir, Perry. I'm looking forward to it myself. So
Thanks, Brett.
The ingredients of the Lincoln Avenue, I would like to think, are already at your home bar right now. All right.
Unless you don't have bitters.
Well, the bitters, but I'm going to tell you a little trick on that. That's the beautiful thing about what we're doing today. I'm going to kind of talk to you about that. So, bourbon, number 1, first and foremost. You've got a favorite? We don't have to have a special bourbon for this. Let's go with your favorite bourbon. How about that? All right, sweet vermouth. My goodness, I hope it's on your bar right now. If it's over 6 months old, go out and buy another bottle. All right, because vermouth,
It's not hard to find.
It's not hard to find, and vermouth is one of those, unlike a true spirit, will lose character with time. All right, so your sweet and your dry vermouths, keep those replaced. A delicious orange liqueur, such as Cointreau, or you might just buy some triple sec.
Or make your own at home.
Yeah, or what we've done here is we've made a version of that ourselves, and when you see the video version, you'll see a wonderful navel orange rind peeled off and put inside with some blood orange bitters, and it just makes really delightful orange liqueur. Of course, our Demerara syrup we talked about earlier in the episode with the 1-to-1 to sugar to water ratio of a really nice Demerara sugar.
Mm-hmm.
We use a carbon-free production organic Demerara out of Florida.
Very nice.
And it is available commercially easily. Just look for it in your grocery store. Now, he did mention bitters earlier. Now, we're going to use a couple bitters that I made, a kind of a citrus bitter and an aromatic bitter. And there are great books available on that very subject. But also, so easy to do, the holy trinity of bitters. Every home bar, every bar that's ever opened their doors and claimed to be a bar should have these 3 bitters. If they don't, if just walk in, ask if they have all 3. If they say, "Nah, what's a bitter?" Say thank you very much,
good
and
night.
walk out there. Good night, thank you very much.
Good
Yeah, I'm done. All right. Peychaud's probably the one that they do have. Peychaud's bitters has been around a while, but maybe even more than that, the Angostura bitters, the aromatics are maybe the number 1 bitter ever, and then followed up by Reagan's Orange. Reagan's Orange bitters are made by a true craft mixologist who kind of really couldn't find what he wanted out there and made it himself, and it took hold, and now every drop comes out of Buffalo Trace Distillery here in Kentucky, and Frankfort, Kentucky. As with the Peychaud's bitters, another internationally purchased bitter, every drop comes out of Frankfort, Kentucky.
Sorry, Heaven Hill. I know that we're using your bourbon for this cocktail, but you know what?
Yeah, it's
we're all
one big family.
Exactly. We're all about family here.
So my point is you can buy the Holy Trinity, which you should already have, and make this cocktail. All right, but we do feature 3 bitters in this cocktail, and that's one of the things that separates us from others. And as I've wafted below the noses of my guest here at the Rusty Pistol, some fresh cut mint. Always important. So easy to grow.
Agreed.
It's you can find it in your grocery stores, but my goodness, let's just grow some mint in your backyard, people. I'm telling you right now.
At the very least, things are going to smell amazing.
Amazing.
All
right.
right. So let's jump right into this.
Those are your ingredients.
Yeah.
Navel orange, I think I mentioned earlier also. A splendid standard martini glass is an amazing vessel for this cocktail.
But we're drinking out of coupe glasses.
Yes, so the original glass is the original champagne glass, actually, is a coupe, which is a stemmed glass, rounded and beautiful. You should be able to find them anywhere. But what we're going to do is I'll try to get this over by the mic. We'll put some ice in some of these. Oh, there's a little extra ice there. And what we're going to do, as you would with any martini, we're going to pre-chill your glass. All right. I brought some water here. I've put ice in the glasses. I'm adding some water to the glasses. And while we do the rest of everything, we're just going to let those chill out.
No pun intended.
Yes, no pun intended.
Yeah.
All right. So the first ingredient we'll probably get to is good old mint. All right. You'll probably have some broke off here ready to go. So find your biggest leaves, beautiful, hardy ones that you might have. And about 3 to 6 leaves will make 2 drinks really nicely.
And as a 4D experience for you, as Brett is pulling those leaves off of the stem, there's just an unbelievable aroma that's coming out. If you've never pulled mint leaves right off of the stem,
it is splendid.
I can't recommend that enough.
No, yeah, it is. It will open your mind, your nose, and your ideas for future cocktails. What I've added while Perry was talking was some of that Demerara sugar we've already talked about. We don't have to get serious about measuring. Let's just make sure we've covered those mint leaves very well. And with the sugar, we're going to muddle next. All right. Just all you want to do. He's laughing because I'm using a bitters bottle right now because I forgot to muddle. But what we're really trying to do is just break some cells. Just kind of get those opened up. We're not trying to just really get crazy. About like making a nice mojito. All right?
Except it's with bourbon.
Yes, it's with bourbon. And as he said, bourbon is coming next. What we're going to add is about an ounce to ounce and a half of bourbon per drink that you're making. Now remember, these are like a martini. There's no ice. What you see is what you get as far as your liquors. So I go a little heavy to closer to like a 2-ounce pour per drink.
And all the power to you.
Yep. And the best thing about a Lincoln Avenue, if you over pour the bourbon, that leaves a little for the doctor, for you, the bartender, after you make the drinks. You have all kinds of fun stuff left in your shaker.
There are so many bartenders that say you need to pour exactly the right amount.
I forgot how to measure a long time ago.
I don't believe in that by any means.
So the basic thing you need to understand on the Lincoln Avenue is based on the original cocktails. So it's sort of a percentage. Whatever you put in the bourbon, you want to cut back on the vermouth to about half, and then on the orange liqueur, again, about half. So the vermouth, we're going to put in about an ounce per drink, all right, that you're doing. All right. And now we're going to follow that right up with the orange liqueur at about 3/4 to a half ounce for each drink.
For those of you following along at home, now would be a perfect time to pause or go back in order to figure out exactly what you're supposed to be doing, because you've never done this before. And if you have, hi, Greg.
There you go. All right, now, what we've done, we've got the bourbon, we've got the Demerara, we've got the sweet vermouth, we've got the wonderful orange liqueur, we've got the elements of several of your most beloved bourbon cocktails, but it's just simply not a true cocktail without bitters. So I'm going to put in some aromatic bitters, a nice dropper or two, as I want to do, because I think it's not a cocktail without bitters. It's not a drink without bitters.
I agree, actually.
All right, and we're going to do some citrus. We're going to do some citrus bitters. All right, a really nice addition to really bring things out. But we're going to absolutely go to our classic Angostura bitter. The one bitter you're going to find at any bar you go to that's worth drinking at.
Any bar, any liquor store. Oh,
yeah, nice little sound
fanfare.
effect for you. Yeah. So we have just made a cocktail with 3 kinds of bitters in it, and all probably the most classic ingredients. We've not tried to do anything. We've not invented any wheels here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that in a shaker that's got some ice in it. All right, we're going to shake that up. Now, you gin drinkers know how you want to stir a nice gin drink, and a lot of the bourbon drinks, you want to stir a bourbon drink. We're going to shake this one because it's so much flavor. It's there's plenty of alcohol in it. Every ingredient has the alcohol in it. But what we want to do is we just want to make this cold and amazing. All right, so I know a lot of y'all have been to a lot of bars. You've seen some lackluster shaking. I don't want to see that out there in radio land at all. I want you to assume a karate stance, and I want you to shake like you're defending the country. All right, here we go.
And what a shake we had there.
Yeah, right to the microphone. All right, so now's the chance for us to dump those glasses that have the ice and the water in them. And you'll see a very wonderful frost develop there.
And Brett has his own ice container, I guess. What am I looking for here?
Dump bucket.
Ice.
That's a very glamorous name for it. All right, so I'm using just a strainer now, and I'm straining these beverages into the glasses.
The color on that, though.
And I purposely saved a little for the doctor. In this case, the doctor is drinking alone, along with the host. But my beautiful daughter Lucy is going to want a taste. So
the official wife of the
yes,
the podcast.
I made a little extra there. All right, now, as with a good mint julep, the mint should just not be thrown in there. It should be part of the experience.
And let me just say, before we jump into this part of it, this is my favorite part of this cocktail.
I love to hear that, because this is actually my favorite part too, Barry.
This is truly inventive. This is truly genius.
So what we wanted to do, we wanted to make this cocktail celebrate the different aspects. Like I said before, bring forward the best of the best. All right. So with that, everyone has their own individual flavors and desires. All right. So what we wanted to do is find a way to make it really, truly custom to your drinking enjoyment experience. So I just broke off one of the healthier mint leaves that I've got sitting here. I'm going to lay it in my palm. I'm going to smack it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit it nice and aggressively together in a slap fashion to release the oils and the effervescence out of the mint leaf. And I'm going to swab just half of the glass. Half of the glass. All right, we're going to do that right now. Let's get this done.
Oh, that's smack.
Yes. So what's this doing? I'm in the most, Hollywood fashion. I'm trying to look really famous and fashiony when I do it.
It's all part of the art.
Yeah, to get a better tip out of the customer, which I never get. I'm wiping the mint leaf on the brim of the glass, all right, as many times as I can afford, all right? I really want to get those mint oils on that side of the glass. Now, that's just 50% of the glass. And
What goes on the other 50% there, Brad?
all right. A nice, healthy orange. Now, what we're doing, we are not slicing the orange like you might see in those big tubs on your bar of wedged citrus. I am, as carefully as I can, slicing the orange rind, not to get too much pith.
And the producer of this show, this episode, is also the official wife of the podcast.
She's doing a fabulous
Miss
job.
Lucy.
Fabulous job.
Mrs. Lucy.
So now, already, I can just, the bar is erupting in a beautiful citrus smell. And we're really just dealing with the citric acids in the pith. And I'm telling you, it's amazing.
It's a shame that smell-o-vision never caught on.
Yes, well, we're going to do that. That's next coming out on the podcast. I'm holding the orange rind, and now facing the other direction of the drink, I'm doing a nice spritz. I'm just squeezing that skin into the drink, and you can see the beautiful froth move as that acid hits the top. And now, as I did with the mint leaf, I'm doing with the orange rind. Putting the orange side forward and dressing that brim ever so sweetly, so that now half of the glass is mint and half of the glass is orange.
And there's just a little bit of garnish in there, not too much. You're just taking
the very skin we just kind of hit the brim with. We're dropping in pith down, and now I'm breaking off some mint, just a nice sprig off the end, and setting it on the side that we just kind of brimmed with mint flavor. Now this drink is done. We're ready to enjoy it. I don't know how our director wants to handle this, but we're about to drink some Lincoln Avenues, and I wish you were with us.
I really do too. And as I said before, if you would like to participate in the drinking of the Lincoln Avenue, get in contact with the show. I can link you to the actual recipe for this cocktail. Excuse me. And if nothing else, we can have you over for a couple.
Absolutely.
And
sounds great.
I highly recommend that you experiment with it yourself, experience it yourself, and we are going to review this as I know to be my favorite cocktail of all time here on This Is My Bourbon Podcast. So, cheers.
Cheers. Never disappoints. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's really good.
It's so much better now that I like bourbon.
The official wife of the podcast, Lucy,
Yes.
until about, 4 to 6 months ago,
Yeah.
did not partake in bourbon. And
I'm gonna try.
she did.
But
And
she's a good gin drinker, which I can also appreciate.
She did. And we'll save the gin episode for This Is My Gin podcast, which may or may not have already happened in jolly old England.
Right.
But anyway, a couple quick notes on this cocktail before we wrap things up. It's sweet, but the sweetness doesn't keep you from enjoying some of the finer notes throughout. I don't necessarily consider mint to be a sweet flavor, personally.
But it goes well with the sweet taste as
It does,
you experience
it does indeed. And
life.
I wouldn't, as I sit here, I know that you didn't put any kind of cinnamon in here, but I'd be remorse if I didn't mention it tastes like a cinnamon kind of drink.
Yeah, that is how, when you do things right with a cocktail, which is, I hope, all your all's your goal is to bring out the base liquor, not hide
Different flavors too.
it. Yeah, as we find so much with cocktails that are based on basically ethanol, your vodka type cocktails, you're really just alcoholizing other flavors.
Exactly.
All right, what we're doing here is celebrating other flavors.
And that is real evident in the perfect kind of craft that has gone into making such an inventive cocktail.
Yep.
That unless you have really excuse me, sat down and thought about it and tried different things, it's unlikely that you will have created something as well-rounded and perfect as this. But
I want you to.
Go for it.
Do. Yes,
and
absolutely.
this, if nothing else, this is an episode encouraging you to experiment with cocktails. It's an episode where we want you to branch out, go talk to your local bartender, see what their favorite bourbon cocktail is, what their specific spin on it is, and don't limit yourself to a glass of Woodford.
Right. And as we did with the garnishes here, garnishes often are a decoration. But we use these garnishes as a flavor profile expedient.
An experiment.
By rotating the glass, you can change the character of the drink.
Exactly.
You had the orange on one side, the mint on the other. Well, you, as a budding cocktail enthusiast, might come up with something else that you wanted to do. Remember that idea of doing half and half, and then the drinker can literally change the character, and every sip can be a little different by just how they hold the glass in their hand.
Absolutely.
And how the glass hits their lips. There's so much to do out there, people, and you can really enjoy, like we talked about earlier, the look on their face, the look in their eyes when they take the first sip of something you created. And I want you all to experience that.
And as I said, hit us up at thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. We'd be happy to hook you up with the recipe for this cocktail, the Lincoln Avenue. If you would like to experience one firsthand, well, let us know as well, and we can maybe work something out.
It'd be super fun.
Yeah. Just to wrap things up, Brett, thank you so much for,
it's my pleasure, Perry.
hosting us on in the Rusty Pistol.
Absolutely. It feels like a good night here. Got a beautiful blonde across from me. Just happens to be my oldest daughter.
My wife.
And
And a beautiful brunette.
yes, that's right. A handsome young fellow.
Me.
Yes,
I thought you were talking about the dog.
No. Oh, yeah, he is really good looking. But yeah, any time at the Rusty Pistol, you all are welcome, and we'll have much camaraderie.
Well, anyway, this has been a wonderful episode. You can check us out at This Is My Bourbon Shop at gmail.com, My Bourbon Shop on Twitter and
T-shirts
Instagram.
are cool.
T-shirts are wonderful. I'm wearing one right now
Yes,
that
he
says
is.
This Is My Bourbon Drinking shirt.
Of course, I'm wearing a Perry Ritter T-shirt, but it's
music-based,
It's a
though.
music T-shirt.
Yeah.
It's super cool though.
You can find us on Facebook. This is My Bourbon Shop. If you want to talk to me a little bit more personally, find me at Pt.1 just about on all social media platforms. Thank you all so much for listening. If you could give us a little review on iTunes or SoundCloud or whatever you're listening to. I don't even know how SoundCloud really works. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. We'd be happy to see that in our off time. And from all of us here at This Is My Bourbon Podcast, my name is Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.
Cheers.